Alright, hello you guys, this is AK-47 Master here, and what you are listening to right now is what is going to be the final episode of Top 5 Tuesdays for now. I am going to be cutting it off at this point, not the series, the season 2, because one, I already started off a series on theories, which is pretty much going to replace it for now. It's going to allow me to do something a little different, and again, in the post-commentary form, because I love post-commentating. I feel post-commentating is really fun, honestly. It's not awkward for me. It doesn't feel weird to be talking while not playing a game. Although I do feel more natural when I am playing a game at the same time, but I feel like I get my thoughts and points across pretty clearly when I'm just post commentating. So let's go ahead and get into this last episode with a pretty broad topic that you're going to have a lot of personal opinions on. You may have some disagreements with me as far as my list of what are the top 5 gaming consoles of all time. Now, I'm going to judge them on one, the games. Like, the ones that have the most classics and the most memorable games will be on this list. Two, their impact they've had on the gaming industry as a whole in terms of re-innovating, revolutionizing, setting standards, breaking grounds in certain areas in which other consoles just simply weren't able to match. Like, for example, the NES pretty much brought back gaming in America. That's a reason to be on the list, and it is on the list. And I kind of just gave you guys a spoiler for the video, but let's get into the list with number 5. Okay, so starting off with number 5, I wanted to put up a Sega console. And now Sega has had a lot of fails before they really went out of business in terms of the hardware sales and manufacturing. But if I could name one Sega console to be on this list, it would have to be the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast just it defines groundbreaking in every sense of the term. I mean, it was the first sixth generation console. And for those of you who aren't aware of the sixth generation, it's basically the GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and the Dreamcast. Dreamcast came out early in 1998. I believe it was 2 years before the PS2 or 1 year. I believe the PS2 came out in the late 90s or early 2000s, then followed by the Xbox and GameCube in 2001. Anyways, Dreamcast. Dreamcast was the first to really have online gaming on a console. I mean, it was like a PC, and there was even this one game, I believe, Phantasy Star Online, which still has a small, tiny community of like 100 or 200 people that still play the game on their Dreamcasts, not Genesis, Dreamcast, and I think that's crazy. And the sad thing is, the Dreamcast was the last console Sega released. I almost said Sony. It was the last console Sega released before they decided to go full-on software. And it's kind of sad, but it is kind of symbolic if you think about it, because think about its name, Dreamcast. So it was kind of like a dream. It was Sega's dream to be able to continue on making hardware. At least that's the way I interpret it. You know what I mean? Kind of the same way with Square's Final Fantasy series. Like, Final Fantasy was originally going to be their last franchise, like their last game. It wasn't going to spawn into a whole franchise of 15 titles because they didn't expect it to sell that well. If it did sell that well, which it did spawn off a whole bunch of sequels and everything, and prequels and spin-offs. But it was their final game, so again, Final Fantasy, Dreamcast, you see the connection. So I felt the Dreamcast really is a great console, pretty underrated for what it is and what it did for the gaming community outside of PC, of course, the console gaming community. So it's definitely going to be on the list. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is going to be an odd one for some people, but I'm going to say it straight. This game console was a wonder when it came out. It was definitely a mysterious enigma. It was a gem that people didn't really understand. They just all they understood was that it was entertaining. That's all it was. It was simple entertainment. This was before all the high definition graphics came in, all the professional voice acting and actual motion actors, and I'm talking about the Atari. Atari, man. Atari, Atari, Atari. Such a famous name, such a household name back in the 70s and 80s, well, early 80s, before 83. It was on top, man. Atari was the Nintendo of the gaming industry before Nintendo was a thing. In fact, fun fact is that Nintendo's first ever game cartridge was released on an Atari 2600. It was Mario Brothers, the original Mario Brothers, not Super Mario Brothers. The mini game where Mario and Luigi would go through pipes and destroy, and not destroy, make it sound like freaking Doom. They would go around kicking out turtles and crabs and bees. You know, that Mario Brothers. It was released originally on the arcades, but it was also released as a home port for the Atari. Now, of course, Atari is kind of a double-edged sword because they ended up letting just about anyone publish games for their game console. We had the treacherous E.T. release in holiday of 1983, which completely shot down the American video game industry for the next 2 years. So Atari kind of innovated for what they did. A lot of the games were really ahead of their time for what they were trying to do, and it was really interesting to see back then the level of innovation they would put in that is just standard gameplay nowadays. So definitely has to be up here as one of the consoles. Okay, so for my number 3 pick, I am going to be picking, and I know many people are going to be probably saw this coming. I'm going to pick the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360, in my opinion, was the best gaming console of this current generation. It really brought on a lot of innovation in terms of the continuation of the Xbox Live support, the level of communication and social ability that it gave to connect with your friends and play online and being able to talk to anyone. Not being in the same lobby, but just being online in general. It was kind of like Skype in the form of a video game system, and the messaging system and everything, all forms of communication on the Xbox Live, or Xbox Live in general, was excellent. And of course, other accessories came out of the Xbox 360, such as headsets and gunner optics and all of these accessories that were meant to cater towards the competitive community, which is definitely funny because the Xbox 360 is essentially the quintessential of a competitive gamer's console outside of the PC, of course. PC is excluded. It's a given the PC is a beast at playing games and doing other stuff, but this is mainly going to be for consoles. So yeah, the Xbox 360 definitely it defines the modern gaming generation, not whether for good or bad, of course, because you are going to have those annoying 8-year-olds who just play nothing but freaking like Call of Duty and stuff, then call them, say they're a thug and or whatever. You know, you're always going to have those 6-year-olds cursing you out online, but that's part of the experience, man. It's part of the experience. Alright. Okay, so next for number 2, I'm going to be picking a console that took the world by storm. It the best-selling console, best-selling video game system of all time, the PlayStation Deuce. PlayStation Deuce, PlayStation 2. Yes. The most manufactured game console of all time, the largest gaming library of all time. The honestly, it was the game console to get back in the 2000s, even the 2010s. I mean, they still sold it in 2011, 2012, which was over 10 years after its original release, and 5 or 4 years after the PS3's release. So I felt that Sony knew what they were doing when they made that console. They knew it was made to last. It was built to last too. I mean, I know people who still have their originals, and I could say, you know, the Xbox 360 is a fault for that because I got red rings 2 years after owning it. Granted, I fixed it, but come on, why did you have to put it in there, Microsoft? Why? Sony knows what they were doing when they're making a console, pretty much. I mean, all of their consoles were durable. They're built to last. They do what they're supposed to do, which is play some goddamn games. That's all you want a game console to do nowadays. Play the games. Don't worry about the other stuff. I'm looking at you, Xbox One. But yeah, PlayStation 2, man. It was an excellent console. So many games, so many publishers supporting it, so many developers making games for it. And I feel the PS3 is probably going to have the same treatment. I think that the PS3 is still going to sell in 2016, 2017. In those years, I think it's still going to be on store shelves, selling out like hotcakes, just like its predecessor. And looks like the PS4 is probably going to have the same future, which is a good thing. So yeah. Now on to what in my opinion is the best gaming console of all time. The game console that made the biggest impact in the gaming media, culture, and industry. A game console that not only saved the industry, but it also kind of re-innovated and reimagined the way we game. And that console is the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, the Famicom, as it was called in Japan. And it was released back in 1985, 2 years after. This is going to be some gaming history for you guys. 2 years after the American video game crash of 1983. Keep in mind, this video game crash did not affect Europe. It did not happen in Japan. It did not happen in Europe. Games were still selling, and Japanese kids were still going to, arcades and pouring all their quarters or their equivalent of quarters in yen into those machines to play the games. You know what I mean? But in America, it just wasn't a thing anymore until Nintendo came along. And originally Nintendo was a trading card or a playing card, a poker card company, and they were around for years before they actually started to make games. So I always felt that we owe it to Nintendo. For every game console and every new innovation that comes out nowadays, it's all thanks to them, honestly, because they set the standards. They paved the way for many developers to come along, many console manufacturers come along, and build a console that just does what it's supposed to do. Again, play the games and make the games fun. And they also introduced a licensing system, since Atari didn't have that, and anyone could develop an Atari game. All you need is two people, a coder and a level designer. That's all you really need to make an Atari game. But Nintendo made it so that you had to license the game, so they would check it and they would actually sell it out to the retail. So they really made a lot of changes that are staples today. Again, standards in today's society, but it was all thanks to them. So this has been the last episode of Top 5 Tuesdays. Kind of a long one. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm AK47 Master, and tell me what's your favorite gaming console of all time. I'm interested to know, and I'm interested to have your guys' opinions in the comments down below. See you guys next time.